plate stood out. Wasn't it your job to look for that sort of thing back then?
Most certainly, yes. Improper display of a license plate would be a violation.
And you look at that as part of your job, right?
Yes.
And you were asked whether or not there was a report that was written in this case, and you answered, well, no, there's a traffic log. Remember saying something about that?
I believe I said a radio log.
Radio log. And what's the difference between a police report and a radio log?
Radio log is automatically created by the dispatch service, which is Valley Emergency Communications Center, and a police report is a report that I would write.
And Exhibit 386, is that the radio log?
Yes, this indicates a West Jordan
Well,
police.
don't say what that is the radio log.
That's the radio log I'm referencing, yes.
I don't have any other questions, thank you.
Any questions from the jury for this witness? I see no hands. Thank you. You may step down. The state may call its next witness.
The state calls Rafael Colombo.
Right up here, sir.
Can you spell your first and last name, please?
Ariel, Joseph, Colombo, all O's.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Sir, right around here and have a seat, please.
Your name, sir?
Rafael Joseph Colombo.
And where do you work, sir?
Devonzo Incorporated,
And what kind of business is that?
DBA Budget Rent-A-Car.
So are you the owner of this franchise, what it sounds like?
Devonzo, correct.
And what is it that, where is this place located? Do you have more than one, or do you have many of them?
Municipal Airport in Redding, California.
And what is the business of this budget place that you have?
Renting vehicles, either leisure or business.
And how long have you had this budget rent-a-car business out in Reading?
Approximately 5 years.
And drawing your attention back to June 2nd of 2008, did you have occasion to be working?
Yes.
How is it that the renting works? Just in theory, not as it applies to June 2nd. How does it work? When a person comes in?
There's a couple different ways. Either somebody will walk up unannounced and ask for a vehicle without a reservation, or they will call you on the phone and make a reservation, and or go on the website and make a reservation through one of the internet programs that offer rental cars.
And in order to rent a car, what is required? In other words, from the person? I understand that money will be eventually required, but what kind of identification? Is a credit card required? What is required?
21 and over with a major credit card, valid driver's license, and 25 and over. If you're under 25 years old, and between 21 and 25, you'll need a major credit card to rent a vehicle. If you are 25 and older, just the valid driver's license and a credit card.
Going back to June 2nd of 2008, did you have occasion to rent a car? And I'll show you exhibit number 235 and see if you recognize this particular item.
I do recognize it.
And were you the person who actually was the clerk associated with that car rental?
I was.
And is that a true and accurate copy of the car that you rented back on June 2nd of 2008? And the time was what, 8:04 in the morning?
8:04 in the morning. This would be accurate.
All right, and is that the original? It looks like to be an original. Is it, or is it just a copy?
This is the original.
All right, I may have it back. I move for the admission of exhibit number 235.
No objection.
235 is admitted.
Sir, I'm going to take it out of its packaging so we can look at it. First of all, there's 3 sheets. Is this what is the paperwork that you keep that's associated with each rental?
Yes, we'll keep those in copies.
All right. Let's take a look at the copy on top. First of all, there's the name here. Do you see that?
I do.
What's the name?
Jodi Arias.
Is that the person that rented this car?
Yes, sir.
Is that person who rented the car, is she in court today?
Yes, sir.
Tell me where she is seated and what she is wearing.
She's dark hair in the black on the left-hand side of the desk, right there, my left.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the identification of the defendant?
Yes.
With regard to this particular transaction, what was Ms. Arias's demeanor when she came up to rent this car from you?
Very pleasant.
And- Go ahead.
She had phoned a few times before requesting a vehicle, and that'd be ready when she gets to the counter.
So she had actually called it in?
Yes, sir.
How do you know that she actually called it in?
She stated her name.
Okay. And you had answered the phone before? Is that?
I did.
And when she called, did she request a specific car or just said, I need a car on this particular date and time?
Something dependable.
When she showed up there, was she alone or was she with somebody else?
I saw a gentleman.
So was it a guy that
the
was with her?
count- Yes, I'm not sure if it was with her or not, but
And when she was renting this car, why don't you tell us what happened, what you said, and what she said?
I had asked where she was going, and like I do with all my customers, to get familiar with them. So
What did
maybe
she
they might
say?
return. She was going to take a small, just go around town trip, nowhere big. She did not want a car that was loud in color.
For example, did you offer her a red car or not?
I did at first.
And what did she say when you offered her a red car?
She would rather have a lighter car,
Why?
lighter color.
Did she tell you why?
She did not.
So she wanted a car that was not red, and then what happened?
Again, I asked her a little bit about who she was, and she had mentioned she was single, but just coming around town. She was very pleasant to speak to, very friendly.
And she helped or provided the information in this document, correct?
Correct.
Well, do you remember her hair color back then?
It was blonde.
And so this information that's here, is that provided by the customer, in this case, Ms. Arias? The date that she rented it is right up here, right?
That would be the date rented, the June 2nd
At,
at 800, or a little over 804.
okay, and then it says due in. Do you see that right there?
Yes, I do.
I think we know what that means, but
Her time of arrival back to bring the car would have been June 2nd also at 8:15.
June 6th, is that?
Excuse me, June 6th, yes.
And is this car the type that has unlimited miles? In other words, a person can go anywhere they want? Or can you tell here?
I could probably tell. And it should be unlimited miles, yes.
It says that right
Yep,
there. correct?
unlimited.
So if it's unlimited miles, the reason you were asking her where she was going, was it because of the mileage issue or was it something else?
Certain vehicles that we get in might need an oil change in a certain, they're to be oil changed every so often.
Right.
And if not, we get penalized for letting them go over their preventive maintenance. So I'm always asking where they're going to find out what sort of vehicle I'm going to give them.
And there are these initials, and there is a signature on this particular document, correct?
Yes, sir.
How long did this whole conversation or renting the car take?
Probably a little over 15 minutes.
And, well, let's look at it. What kind of car did you rent her?
White Ford Focus.
Were you there when the car was returned?
Yes, sir.
And were you the person that checked the car in?
Yes, sir.
Did you notice anything unusual about the car when you were checking it in, this white Ford Focus?
I did.
Why don't you tell me what you noticed?
After the conversation that I had with her, I had thought she would be local miles. And in turn, the car had a little bit more miles than I thought on it for being local, so it struck me.
Let's look at Exhibit 237.001. How many miles are we talking about there that you saw?
The 1,925 miles it had leaving.
But you-
Miles in were 4,758.
But if you take a look up here, how many total
Total
miles?
miles driven 2,834, 2,834.
Did you talk to her about that? Or
I
at
thought
all?
it was very, very odd, and I did.
And what did she say?
I just decided to take a little bit longer trip.
And did she say where she went or anything?
She did not.
When the cars come back, do you just leave them like that? Do you send them somewhere to be cleaned? Exactly what is it that happens?
We have detailers that clean the vehicles.
Were you able to look at the car before the detailers got a hold of it?
I did myself.
Oh, so you actually cleaned it yourself then?
I didn't, but I go out there and usually do a walk around to make sure there's no rock chips, dents, scratches, and interiors.
And what did you notice about the inside of the car?
There were stains on the back seat.
And what was
And
the
a
color of the stains?
It appeared to be Kool-Aid.
Okay. And were those cleaned up?
I took it upon myself to go there and clean it.
How about anything in the front seat areas? Did you notice anything there?
I did.
What did you notice?
The same Kool-Aid stain, which I thought maybe she had kids in the vehicle,
Which seat had the Kool-Aid stains?
the passenger and the back seat in the middle.
And which the one had the larger of the stains, the front or the back?
The back.
And how about the floor mats? Did the car go out with floor mats?
They do.
And were all the floor mats there when it was returned?
They were not.
And is that the front and the back, or just the front that we're missing?
All of them were missing.
I don't have any more questions, thank you.
Cross-examination.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
I want to make sure I understood you correctly. Are you the owner or the manager of this budget rent-a-car, or you maybe both?
No, I do business as Budget. Budget has, I'm not an employee of Budget's. I don't work for Budget. I own Devonzo Inc., which we do business as.
Okay. So you're a franchise owner? of
Independent
Budget?
contractor,
Okay. But you do business as a budget
as
rent-a-car?
Budget Rent-A-Car, but I have, like I said, there's nothing as far as me working for them.
Okay. I think I understand that. Are you familiar with the business practices of budget rent-a-car, then, having run one for a while?
Yes,
Okay. And how long have you run the budget rental car?
a little over 5 years.
Okay. And this is at the Redding Airport, correct? Redding, California?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay. Based on your experience and knowledge of the business practices with budget rent-a-car, do you know, do they associate with or contract with any companies like Orbitz.com or some of these search engines that let you look for, compare rental car prices throughout companies?
Yes, sir.
They do that?
Yes.
Okay. And are you aware, when you get the car rental, whether or not, what the source was of where it came from?
There's a code in there, and sometimes I could, maybe not what company, Orbitz, but I do know that they either made it via the 800 number or online.
Okay. And is that something that's on the form, or is that something on some paperwork we don't have with us?
It would be on the reservation itself, which we don't have.
Okay. And then when Ms. Arias called you, that was a follow-up based on a reservation that had already been made, correct?
No, I'm not aware, I don't know.
Okay, you don't know.
No, I didn't see her in the system earlier. I mean, I can't recall whether I saw her in the system or not, but I do know that she called me.
Okay, all right. And she called you to ensure that a vehicle would be ready, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you rent a car to a person, and we just looked at the form, you know, somebody doesn't just show up with cash and take the car, right?
We don't accept cash.
Okay. My point is, I guess you need some ID?
You do?
Okay. And what do you need, a driver's license?
A valid driver's license and a major credit card.
Okay. Do you photocopy the driver's license?
We do not.
Okay. But you verify it?
We verify it
Okay.
in our system.
And you said a valid credit card as well. Do you run that, put a deposit on it? How does that work before the person takes the car out of the
The
lot?
credit card is swiped through a machine on the keyboard, and it is verified whether it has funds in there or not through the
Okay.
swipe.
Is there a certain amount of funds that you might check, or in that regard, or how does that work?
It might have been different back there, but right now with a major credit card, it's either $200 or the amount of the rental,
Okay.
whatever's greater. They're gonna, minimum $200 they're gonna
Okay.
hold.
And what about insurance? Do you verify someone's insurance, or how does that work?
We don't offer insurance, we offer coverage. So we ask the customer and explain to them some of the coverages that we offer.
Okay. But if they decline the coverage, do they have to show you proof of insurance in some other form, like I'm with this company or that company?
They usually bring that.
Okay. Do you remember from this car rental whether or not Ms. Arias did that or not?
I don't recall.
Okay. And you said you had at least a 15-minute interaction with her?
At least.
Okay. And was that when she provided you the information, her address, phone number, things of that nature?
Correct.
Okay. She wasn't hesitant about any of that?
Nope.
Okay. And then this interaction continued as it related to the type and color of the car that she wanted. Is that correct?
Yes, usually with my customers, like I said, I get to know them, and I usually offer them different vehicles that I might have on my lot that might suit them.
Okay. And I believe you said, one of the things you said to me when we spoke a while back was that it was your custom and practice to kind of get to know your customer, speak with them a while, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Correct, okay. And she wasn't evasive in any way to your conversation, correct?
She wasn't.
Okay. That's all the questions I have, Judge. Thank you.
Correct.
You did indicate that you do verify your driver's license, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Let's take a look at exhibit number 235. Does this have a place for a driver's license on it? Do you see
It
that
does.
there? Let me show you another exhibit. Take a look at exhibit 241. Up here you have four last numbers of 7137. You see that up there?
I do.
And in front of you, you have a driver's license, right?
Yes, I do.
And does that have the last four digits of that driver's license or what?
It does.
And what are they?
7137.
So that's the driver's license that's involved, correct?
Correct.
And the name on that driver's license is who? That you have in front of
Jodi
you?
Arias. Yeah, it matches contract.
Okay. Move for the admission of exhibit 241.
No objection.
241 is submitted.
Let's take a look at it. It's a little bit. There we go. And the address there, it's a P.O. Box 622. So does a person, obviously a person does not have to list the residential address where they live. They can just give you a P.O. Box and then rent something.
Restate your question.
In terms of renting, do you require that they give you a driver's license with a residential address, or is a P.O. Box okay?
We're in a rural area, so P.O. boxes, especially at that time, were fine. They're trying to readjust that where they would need a physical address, but back then, P.O. boxes were accepted.
And your cars that you rent, does California require them to have both a front and a back license plate?
Yes.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Any questions from the jury for this witness? I see no hands. Thank you. You may step down.
The state recalls Detective Flores.
Detective, you are still under oath. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Your name?
Esteban Flores.
And yesterday, before we left, we were actually viewing an item, weren't we?
Yes, we were.
see if we,
You know they're intentionally to do this, and you're ashamed of it. You're so ashamed that you will come up with a story to try to hide it.
I was there that day, but I didn't take Travis's life.
You haven't convinced me. I mean, I hope you can convince a jury, but I doubt it very seriously. Because there's no evidence of anybody else being there. Nobody. And we're still not done looking at all the evidence. We still have other things to check in the lab and other blood swabs and other things like that. And every time they call me and tell me, hey, we've checked this, points at Jodi. Hey, we've checked that, that points at Jodi. Nothing points at anybody else. Do you want to be truthful with me? If not, we can just end it now. And we'll just leave it the way it is.
I know that it's obvious I was there.
No, it's obvious that you committed a crime, that you hurt
There's
Travis.
no reason for
No,
me to hurt him.
it's not like that. It's. I know that you did this, and you refuse to tell me why.
There's no
You
reason.
refuse to tell me why. There's no reason somebody else would come in and do this to him. There's no motive whatsoever. We haven't found any.
What is my motive?
Jealousy, anger, fear, if you're being alone, angry at him for not keeping you in his life. I don't know. That's why I'm trying to figure it out. There are so many motives with you. Too many. We know you had a 25 auto. You guys reported it stolen. Recovered the ammunition and it matches. We recovered a shell casing. It matches the ammunition. Prints, your blood, your hair, the motive.
There's
You
no
were
motive.
there.
I wasn't jealous of anything. I was a little bit envious that he was going to Cancun, but that wasn't the reason. Like, I could go to Cancun. It's not cheap to go to Mexico. I mean, it's not expensive to go to
I
Mexico.
know. You were probably standing above him when he was in the shower. And you shot him in the head.
I was kneeling down beside him looking at the
Jodi.
pictures.
And then you had a knife. And you stabbed him. Several times. Yes, you did. Jodi. Tell me the truth. Please. Or if you want, we can stop here. It doesn't matter. You've given me so much already. Why stop? Do you want to? Do you want to continue? Do you want to tell me the truth? What did you do with the gun,
I never had it in my possession.
Jodi? You did.
Never. I don't have it.
Yeah, you don't have it. You know, people say that when they know of the gun. They've seen the gun. They've touched the gun. You don't have it.
I saw the gun.
Yeah. But you had it before. You've touched it. You've used it. I know you have.
I don't think I've ever even fired a gun. I've done bows and arrows, but not guns, and water guns, yes, but not a real gun. And the gun that I got on Friday was never used.
So you're going to continue to tell me that you didn't do this to him?
Did not kill Travis.
I believe you did. I truly believe you did. And there's nothing showing that anybody else did this. Nothing. I've been in so many scenes and so many investigations, and there's always, always some type of evidence left behind, no matter how careful somebody is. And in this case, there was evidence. Not pointing at anybody else, just you. And that's what I have to go by. And that's what my report's going to say.
Okay. If I had planned to hurt him in any way, I'm not the brightest person, but I don't think I could stab him. I think I would have to shoot him continuously until he was dead, if that were my intention. And again, I bring up the gloves again, but I would have to wear gloves, because, I'm not too worried about prints. I guess they're all over anyway, but I would never stab him. If I had it in me anywhere to kill him, the least I could have done was make it humane as possible, or quick, or something, It's not like killing is humane, so to speak. I don't mean it that way, I just mean
I know what you mean.
like, he was still alive.
Yes, he was. He was alive for a while. And I knew that he'd been shot first, and he was still alive, and possibly tried to get away, maybe even tried to fight back.
I think he was in shock. I just remember waking up and...
But you didn't see him fight back or anything, did you? He just kind of collapsed there, and...
No, he was here, outside of the shower.
And then you pulled him this way, you tried to get away with him, but then he couldn't go any further.
He said he couldn't move.
Yeah.
He said he couldn't feel his
And that's the
legs.
last place you saw him. You said that he stopped and kind of collapsed right there. She
No.
was standing there, and he was over here, and it just doesn't make any sense.
He was still, able to move. He was all, I guess he was all conscious up here, sort of, still. But he wasn't, on his leg or on his knees or on his feet. He wasn't walking.
It's crawling.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if when I got him from there, he was sort of using his legs, but he wasn't standing up.
Yeah. If you're going to continue on that route, I don't think I'm going any further.
I don't remember what time I left, but...
I gave you an opportunity. This was the only opportunity. Okay, and you gave me the information that you were there, but I knew you were there. And then you throw some story in that is not plausible. It just doesn't make any sense with the evidence that was there at the house. Doesn't make any evidence at all, or any sense at all. That evidence tells a story. And nowhere in that evidence does that story that you told me match. It doesn't match. Is that how you want to leave it? You want to stop here, and that's how you want to leave it?
I know that I didn't take Travis's life. And I know that you don't.
I know you did.
Okay, I know you don't believe me.
I don't believe you.
As long as I am here, someone else is happy. And it's not them.
So you're just going to let these two people get away with it?
There's not even any way to identify them. One was male, one was female. They were taller than me. Not by a whole lot.
Are you ready
I'd still like to say something to his family, but I don't think I have anything that could bring them comfort.
Okay.
Maybe I could write them a letter.
Well, you always have that opportunity to do that, so
Would they receive it?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't mean would they accept it, I mean if it made it to them, would they get it? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't have their, I'm not gonna provide you their address.
I know his
They know
grandmother's
where you're
address.
gonna be, and if they wanna make contact with you, they can do that.
That's fine, I know his grandmother's address, and I guess if I could mail it, but
Okay.
I don't know if that's something.
Well, let me see if I can get someone to take it up. You're absolutely sure you won't leave it like this?
I don't know what else to say.
That's it then. Okay, the next time I see you will probably be in Phoenix. Is that cool?
I have a choice.
Well, you're going there regardless, so it doesn't matter. But I was hoping that we could resolve this here. And it's obvious by what you're telling me, you don't want to resolve this here.
I just can't.
Well, at the beginning you told me that you couldn't tell me because you couldn't tell me who they were because you didn't want your family to get hurt.
I can't
Okay.
let my family.
And now you're telling me you don't know who they are, and therefore it doesn't matter. So there's nothing you can tell me.
I can give you the
So
best
many
description.
inconsistencies that I don't even want to deal with right now.
Okay, I just don't want my family to get hurt.
Okay? They won't get hurt. You're hurting them right now by not telling me the truth. That's what you're doing. Okay?
Judge, may we approach?
Examination.
I should indicate I don't have any other questions at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, it's been a while since you and I talked. We've seen numerous clips throughout the past few days. Before we talk about what we saw on those clips, I want to go back to some of the things we discussed, or you discussed with Mr. Martinez a while back. You and I had talked about your interview with Miss Arias on the 15th of July. Remember talking to me about that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And we talked about some of the things that you said in there about Mr. Alexander portraying himself a certain way, but he's not. Do you remember us discussing that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And we also talk about referring to Mr. Alexander and Miss Arias, how they kept their relationship hidden from everybody else. Recall we talked about that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And one of the final things we talked about is that you had made the comment that maybe you were,
Hearsay, relevance.
this, may we approach?
You may.
And Detective, a few days back, we also talked about your comment to Ms. Arias that you were just going there to have a good time and something got out of hand, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, after we talked about that, Mr. Martinez talked to you about techniques, interview techniques, interrogation techniques. So that's kind of what I want to talk to you a little bit about. As you've said, I believe 19 years with the police department, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you've been trained in interview techniques?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And you've been trained in interrogation techniques?
Yes, it's the same thing.
Okay. So you would label them all the same thing?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And what label would you use, interview or interrogation?
Some courses are labeled both interview and interrogation. Some courses are just interviews.
Okay. What sort of training then in your years with the Mesa Police Department have you had regarding interviews? I'll just say interview, well, we'll go interviews and interrogation.
When I first became a detective, I took an interview and interrogation course, about 30 hours. It was a basic course, and then I, soon after that, took an interview course. It's more advanced, 12 hours or so.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, basically, yes.
Okay. And before you became a detective, were there courses in the academy on interviewing, that sort of thing?
Yes, there are. There are some basic courses in the academy on how to contact people and how to interview people, yes.
Okay. And I suspect as well, even though we use the words interview and interrogation, you said they're about the same. There's got to be a difference in the kind of interview you're conducting if you're, say, talking to a witness versus talking to a suspect, right?
Yes, there are differences.
Okay. Could you explain that to us?
Well, obviously, when you're talking to a witness, you're trying to extract information that they saw or remembered. Interrogation is more so talking to somebody who's suspected of a crime.
Okay. So tell us then, well, these techniques that you discussed, are those different than in the type of interview in terms of the interview versus the interrogation?
Yes, they're a little different.
A little different, okay. And why are they different?
Just because of the nature of what they are. You're talking to a witness or someone who's accused of something.
Okay.
It's going to be different.
And why?
Just for the reasons I said.
Well, let me ask you this then. In terms of somebody being a suspect versus somebody just being a witness, is there concern that somebody who's a suspect is going to be a little less forthcoming with information?
Yes, that's obvious, yes.
Okay. And that there may be a concern that they're not telling the truth, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Going back to these techniques that you were talking to Mr. Martinez about, claiming that these things were techniques, what specific techniques can you point to in terms of your interrogation that you would classify your comments as?
In this particular case, every
Mhm.
case is different. In this case, you use evidence. Sometimes you could say, hey, I saw your fingerprint there, or I know your fingerprints were there. Maybe they really weren't there. Those are some techniques that you use.
Okay. Well, what technique were you using then when you said maybe you're going there to have a good time with him and something got out of hand? What technique is that?
That's usually what we call a theme. As you're talking to somebody, as you research their backgrounds, you kind of get a somewhat of an understanding of what their life is like and what relationships are like, and you develop a theme in that case.
Okay.
And that's the technique.
Okay. And as it relates to Mr. Alexander portraying himself a different way, and he's not really that type of guy, what kind of theme would that be, or what kind of technique would that be?
I was kind of playing on her emotions at that time.
You saw her as emotional?
No, not really.
Okay. But you were playing on it despite the fact that you said you didn't see it, right?
I was hoping.
Okay.
Yes.
And about the relationship being hidden from everyone else, your claim was that's a technique as well.
Yes.
And what technique is that?
Same technique. I was hoping to play on her emotions.
Okay. Now, when it relates to, and it's obvious from the words you said, when Miss Arias told you about the intruders, you didn't believe her, correct?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of interrogation in those suspects, have you been trained on how to discern deception, or that there's indicators of deception?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that.
During the same courses that I've taken, there's certain things that people do when they're deceptive. They, turn away a certain way. They, play with their clothes a lot. They, you can tell when they're, reaching in the back of their mind to try to find something to tell you.
Okay. And I believe that you said that within 30 seconds to a minute you could discern those sort of patterns. Is that right?
I don't remember saying that.
Okay. Let me ask you this. How many, and I'm sure I'm not expecting an exact number, but how many interrogations have you conducted over the years?
I don't really remember.
Hundreds?
Yes.
Thousands?
Maybe hundreds, thousands.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Now, when you talk about indicators of deception, you talked about really nonverbal indicators, what you just told me. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
You're talking about nonverbal indicators. Okay. Are there verbal indicators? Meaning in terms of what they tell you?
Could be.
Okay. Let me ask, based on your training and experience, is there, when people lie, is there, generally speaking, based on your training, an effort to throw a little truth in there to make the lie more believable?
Yes.
Okay. It has to be plausible, right? From the lie's perspective, he or she is trying to get you to say something or believe something plausible, right?
Yes.
And your job then as a detective, I would imagine, is to kind of sort out some of that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in one of your answers, there was some discussion about you attempted to find a handgun or knife, and you didn't find one. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Were there knives recovered
Yes,
at the Alexander home?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And what sort of knives did you recover?
Kitchen knives.
Okay. How many, do you know?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
Several, a set, perhaps?
A set, there was a kitchen block that was
Okay.
taken. There were knives in the washing, in the wash at that time, the
Okay.
dishwasher.
And none of those will be determined to be evidence related to this crime?
We couldn't determine if they were the ones used or not.
Okay. And you said, before we get back to the interviews, you talked about you searched in the yard for the gun? For any evidence, I guess, but any weapon, right?
All around the residence, in and out.
The front yard, backyard area?
Yes.
Okay. What about the neighborhood?
We really didn't have anywhere to go.
Okay.
No.
Neighbor's yard, anything like that? You didn't look there?
Everything in the immediate area.
Okay. All right.
We looked at.
Well, let's talk about the interviews then. On July 15th, you felt as if you had enough evidence to arrest Ms. Arias, correct?
Yes.
And in that regard then, maybe complete isn't the most accurate word, but you had a fairly complete investigation, correct?
Up to that point, yes.
Up to that point, okay. Now, if I need to refresh your recollection with the videos, we can do that. But one of the first, well, we watched several, but we had one video that really centered around a period of time when you and Miss Arias were conversing about the advantages of her moving to Mesa, or her move to Mesa. She spoke about some of the advantages. Do you remember seeing that video a couple days ago?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And in that video, she made a comment to the effect that Travis told her that they could still hang out if she moved in Mesa. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And did you in your investigation later determine hanging out being a code for having sex?
No, I don't remember that.
Okay. And the other thing that was interesting about that tape was that it cut off right about the time Miss Arias was talking about Lisa. She made a comment, she didn't know about him and Lisa, referring to Travis and Lisa. Do you recall that?
I don't recall that specifically, no, I don't.
Reviewing Exhibit 351, refresh your recollection, Detective.
Sure.
May we approach?
At this time, please be back in the designated area at 1:25, and we will start promptly at 1:30. Please remember the admonition. You are excused. Have a nice lunch. Thank you. Please be seated. Council, please approach. Let's bring in the jury. We'll show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Mr. Nurmi, you may continue with cross-examination.
And Judge, is the screen on?
Yes.
Detective, when we, before we broke for the lunch break, we were about to talk about Exhibit 351. I asked you about the tail end of that, and you needed your recollection refreshed on that, and I'm going to play that for you now, okay?
Okay.
Let's move to after the breakup.
Oh, okay.
What kept you in Mesa at that point?
I actually moved to,
Let's move to after the breakup.
oh, okay.
What kept you in Mesa at that point?
I actually moved to Mesa a few weeks after we broke up.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, as far as the timeline goes. But, I mean, if you want to call it our official breakup. Shortly thereafter, it's like we were still seeing each
So
other.
you guys were seeing each other, but it was a long distance type relationship.
It was always long distance when we were officially dating. We dated from about the beginning of February to about the end of June. So February, March, April, May, June, about 5 months total.
Okay. In June of 2007, you guys broke up, and then you moved to
29.
Mesa.
Yeah, I moved to Mesa sort of.
Most people, when they break up, they kind of go
I
their own
know,
way.
and plans were already in order for me to move there. I was already speaking with a friend who was, was going to be her roommate, and I was her roommate for a short time.
Mhm.
She's kind of flighty, she's a great girl, though. I had talked to Travis about maybe going to Southern California instead.
Okay.
And he's really persuasive.
They persuaded you to stay there in Mesa.
He kind of was playing up all the advantages if I did come to Mesa. And if I did, he said, it's a great place. We could still see each other and hang out on occasion. This church is very strong. You'll make a lot of friends. And I already knew all this stuff prior because we talked about that. And so I went ahead and just made the move. It sounded at the time like a good idea.
And you guys continued to kind of see each other at that time?
Yeah, at the time I was sort of living more across town over by Greenfield. Do you know where that is?
Yeah.
It was up Greenfield near Broadway. Greenfield and Broadway were the nearest cross streets. And that's where the girl that I was originally talking with, I moved in with her.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Yeah.
childhoods.
Yeah. The thing about her, and just to give you a background of why I moved suddenly, she approached me the weekend after I got there and said, hey, she knocked on my door, can I talk to you for a second? I said, sure. And she moved in with her boyfriend, and they were engaged.
Okay.
And she said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that Scott and I went to Vegas last weekend to tie the knot. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, we haven't told anyone, but we didn't want to live in sin. So we're going to, and she had already been sealed in the temple once and was waiting for her cancel. Her
sealing to be
to be canceled. So they were going to have a civil wedding on the beach in Oregon. And they did that the following weekend. She told me that on a Monday or Tuesday. It was the beginning of the week. And she said, the reason I'm telling you that is because I'm getting married this weekend, and I have to go out of town a few days ahead of Scott, make arrangements. And now that he's a married man, we don't feel it's right that you be here in the house.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't want to inconvenience you, but is there any way you could stay with somebody else or just find another place? At the time, I was waiting on a house in Gilbert, because I already knew they were getting married, so I was kind of looking anyway. And there was a great girl named Brenda, and she was waiting on her keys for the mortgage to go through, and it was a great ward, it was a great house, and it was brand new. Construction and all that. It was really nice. But she didn't get her keys for months and months. I think she's in the house now, but I don't know. I haven't talked to her. So I scrambled. I went to the Institute. I wrote down a bunch of phone numbers. I called them all, a lot of them. I got voicemails. One girl that answered, her name was Tiffany, and she knew Travis. And she was at his services in Arizona and as well. And we've just remained friends, sort of, like on MySpace and Facebook and that kind of thing. But she said, hey, sorry, that's an outdated posting. I forgot to take it down, but go to this website. So ldshousing.net, I went there. I made 3 phone calls for the places that were within my price range. I didn't think to look where they were. The one girl that called me back, her name was Shannon Darricott. She said, here's my place, here's the directions. Go ahead and go out and come see the house. It was available, so we did.
No, go ahead.
You have to get that?
No.
Okay. So I moved out there, and when Travis found out it was so close to him, he freaked out about it. And I made sure to check that it wasn't, that we wouldn't be in the same ward. And it was within his ward boundaries, but it was also within another singles ward boundary. So of course I'm gonna go the other one, because it would just be kind of weird. I mean, I didn't know about him and Lisa at first.
Does that refresh your recollection, Detective?
Yes.
What was said? Okay. At the very end there, she says she didn't know about him and Lisa. Did you hear that?
Yes, I heard that.
Okay. Based on your investigation, who is that reference to?
Might have been a girlfriend, I guess, of Travis's or
Okay.
something.
Does the name Lisa Andrews ring a bell?
That sounds familiar.
Okay. She was interviewed in part of your investigation, right?
I don't remember. She might have been. We talked to a lot of people.
Okay. You talked about, and you've heard other witnesses talk about this mysterious email that she received, so you don't remember talking to her now? This so-called threatening email, tire slashing, you don't remember that now?
Yes, I do remember.
Okay, okay. And that was Lisa Andrews, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And in your investigation, you came to understand that Mr. Alexander, and I'll use the word dating, was dating Miss Andrews and Miss Arias at the same time. Is that correct?
I don't remember the specifics. You're going to have to talk to Lisa about
Don't
that.
remember, okay. And we also saw you in the course of these interviews said, you told Miss Arias that you don't think she planned it, something got out of control, correct?
Yes.
Is that more technique?
Yes. it
Chalking
is.
that up to technique, okay. You also said you do not see a cold-blooded murder. Again, is that going to be technique?
Yes, it is.
Okay. During one of these interviews, or your interview on the 15th, one of the clips, Miss Arias said to you, no reason she would ever want to hurt Travis, harm Travis. And your comment was, I don't think you ever wanted to. More technique?
Yes.
Okay. Now, these techniques, they're very specific for interrogations, correct?
They're not too specific, no.
Well, they're for interviewing and interrogating suspects, right? It's a little, we talked about the difference.
Yes.
It's techniques that you employ on a suspect.
Yes.
Okay. So, when you were interviewed, and we talked earlier that you were interviewed by a news program, CBS 48 Hours, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you would then have no need to employ any of these tactics when you're being interviewed by a reporter, right?
No.
Okay. So if you repeated some of these same techniques when you were engaged in that interview with CBS, or you said some of these things, that wouldn't be techniques, right?
No, it wouldn't be techniques.
No, it wouldn't be techniques. You'd have no reason to use it. So why would you say some of these same things?
Some of the techniques I believed. Some of them were
So
true
they're not
beliefs
all
that I
techniques.
believed.
They're not all techniques. Some of them are what you believed, right?
Techniques are some truths that you do believe, and at that point, when I was interviewing her, I was just kind of reaching at things. I didn't know where she was going with the story.
Okay.
So of course, I would reach out and try to figure out where she's coming from.
Okay. And this interview you had with the correspondent from 48 Hours on CBS, that was subsequent to the July 15th and July 16th interviews you did with Miss Arias, correct?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Several months, correct?
Yes.
Now, I wanted to clear up something as well. You had several interviews with Miss Arias. We've heard snippets or portions of phone calls that began the day that you arrived on the scene or perhaps the day after, and many throughout the course of your investigation, right? Maybe
Yes.
half dozen or so?
I don't remember the exact number, but
That sound about
yeah,
right?
there's a few.
Okay. During any of those times, did she tell you that she worked at a place called Margaritaville?
I don't remember.
She told you all along, as she did in there, that she worked at a place called Casa Ramos. Isn't that correct?
I remember during one interview, she mentioned Casa Ramos.
Okay,
I'd never heard of it before. So.
okay. Now, going back to what we said before about your training on deception, before lunch, we talked about how there's an element of truth in a lie to make it plausible, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let me run back over then some of the things in this last snippet we saw over yesterday and today. She told you a story about intruders entering the home, right?
Yes, she did.
One male, one female, right?
Yes.
Okay. And during this story, and we heard her say that she ran into a closet, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we also heard her say that Travis was shot but still alive, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And she also mentioned, and she even physically indicated, that she got hit on the back of the head, right?
Yes.
Okay. And she also said that there was a knife involved and a gun involved, right?
Yes, she did.
Okay. And in her story of the two intruders, the female half was the aggressor, right? She did the shooting, she did a lot of the activity, right?
Yes, that's what she
Okay.
told me.
Okay. She also said that he was bleeding everywhere, right?
Yes,
And he being referring to Travis, right?
yes,
Okay. And she also said that she was wearing striped pants, right?
yes, she did.
Okay. She said she was scared, right?
Yes,
Freaked out of her mind, right?
yes.
I have no further questions.
Redirect.
Sir, with regard to this issue of techniques, you were asked about that on your cross-examination. How those techniques work out for you during this interview?
Not very well.
Why do you say that they didn't work out very well for you?
I never got the truth.
What are you talking about?
She never really told me the truth about
Well, what did she
happened.
tell you initially? That was she there or not?
No,
Is that the truth?
no, it was not.
She also told you a story about two people doing it. Is that the same story as the one that she told you before?
No, that was a completely different story.
And she was there on this one, right? On the second one she told you, right?
Yes,
And is that what she has, is that the story that she has kept to, or is there a different story now?
it's a different story now. She says she was there and she did it.
So again, these techniques that you're using, tell me a little bit more about your training on these techniques?
Approximately 40, 50 hours of training for interview interrogation.
And with regard to these techniques that you use, in this case, given what you know that she now says she did it, did they work at all?
No, not really.
When you say not really, it implies that they did. How did they work? You tell me how they worked.
Well, there were some truths in there, but the majority of it,
And some
It's
truths you
false.
don't know which is true and which isn't, right? Do you?
no, I don't.
She told you in the second interview that the shot was first, right?
Yes,
And she told you that the shot was first and that the shot was first by somebody else, not her, right?
yes, correct.
And you indicated to me just now, well, there was some truth to it. Is that something that you believed at the time that she told you that the shot was first?
Yes, I actually did believe that.
And is that the position that you adopted after she told you that?
Yes,
Is that your position that you had when you spoke to Dr. Kevin Horn in anticipation of whatever hearing you were going to have?
Objection, that's beyond the scope.
Overruled.
yes, I maintain that belief.
And when you spoke to him, did you speak to him about what your belief was at that time when you spoke to Dr. Horn?
No, not really.
And did you speak about that you believed, Dr. Horn, that you believed based on a conversation with the defendant and on your techniques that you thought the shot was first?
I didn't have that conversation with Dr. Horn.
And when you testified the day after, were you testifying based, at least in part, on what the defendant told you as to what came first?
Yes,
And that was what? What did she tell you came first?
that the shot came first.
She also did tell you other things, that there was blood and that sort of thing, right?
Yes,
You were asked about this issue about whether or not you believed that she was out of control, she was a cold-blooded murderer, did something she didn't want to. Is that what you believe, or is that something that you used to try to perhaps get at the truth in this case?
Objection, this is regardless of what the detective believes.
Rephrase.
Why did you use those phrases, sir?
it was part of my technique to try to figure out what happened.
You were asked about whether or not you went on 48 hours. Do you remember that?
Yes,
And you were asked about having spoken to them, right?
yes,
And you were asked about whether or not there was a technique that was involved with regard to 48 hours, right?
yes,
You've also viewed other interviews people that gave interviews to 48 hours, right?
Yes, I have.
Approach.
You viewed the interview between the defendant and 48 hours, correct?
Yes.
And with regard to the story that she gave there, did it differ from the second story that she gave you in huge amounts, the story that she gave you on July 16th of 2008?
The second story?
Yes, the second story.
No, not much at all.
You were asked about the July 16th, 2008 statement that she gave you about who was the aggressor, whether or not the female was the aggressor and that sort of thing. Do you remember that line of questioning?
Yes.
With regard to what she told you, did she ever tell you that somebody held a gun to her head during this interlude or during this incident?
Yes.
Who did she say put the gun to her head?
The male.
And what did the male do with regard to the gun after he put it to her head?
Let her go eventually.
And with regard to, did she ever tell you of anybody looking in her purse? Did she ever discuss that with you during that interview?
Yes.
And what did she say with regard to who was the person that actually looked in her purse?
The male.
So, in terms of this case, did she ever say who did the shooting? Did she ever tell you if she saw who actually, in her story, who did the shooting or who shot Mr. Alexander?
No.
And this is the same person, this story about who's the aggressor. Was this the same person that told you that previously she wasn't there?
Yes.
I don't have anything else.
Anything else, Mr. Nerman?
I do, Your Honor. These 48-hour interviews of Ms. Arias, you seem to have a pretty good memory of them, is that correct?
Somewhat.
Okay. She didn't, the interviewer didn't ask all the same questions you did she?
I wasn't there, I don't know. I only saw
Well,
what was captured on camera.
You saw what was on camera, okay. As far as what was captured on camera, did the interviewer use the exact same script that you did?
No,
No. She asked more questions, right? Different questions.
yes,
She asked Miss Arias, she said that this looked like a classic case of domestic violence, didn't she?
I don't recall that
You
one.
don't recall that one? Okay, I'm going to see if you recall questions about Mr. Alexander being abusive towards Miss Arias. Do you recall the interviewer asking her about that?
No, I don't.
Okay. And as it relates to Miss Arias, I'm going to guess you don't remember, but Miss Arias being Mr. Alexander's booty call. You don't remember that? Or do you?
That somewhat, yes, I do.
That's somewhat
Yeah.
familiar, okay. And that they discussed the idea that Mr. Alexander would call her late at night requesting sexual favors. Do you remember that being discussed?
No, I don't remember that.
Don't remember that either. Okay. A moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
You told CBS that you thought this was a crime of passion, correct?
No, I don't
No?
remember that, no.
You also told them that something happened and she just snapped. Things got out of control, right?
I remember saying things got out of control, but I don't remember the actual context of it.
Okay. That's all I have for now, Your Honor.
Anything else, Mr. Martinez?
With regard to those comments that you may have made, were those comments based in part on what the defendant told you?
Yes, they were.
I don't have anything else.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have some questions from you. It looks like we have another question. Any other questions for this witness? Counsel, please approach. All right, Detective, the jurors have some questions for you. Were there any sets of knives that appeared to be missing a knife?
No, we didn't find anything like that.
Was the gun that was used to kill Mr. Alexander found in Miss Arias' possession?
No, it was not.
Why were the fibers found at the scene, sandals and pillows, not sent out to compare them?
We didn't feel it was necessary at that time.
When you personally interviewed Mr. Alexander's roommates, was there ever a mention of their concern for his extended absence, June 4 through June 9?
No, they believed he was in Mexico already. They didn't know his schedule.
What were the alibis given by those roommates?
One was working, and the other was actually staying at his girlfriend's home, and they were house sitting for her parents.
Did Mr. Alexander have a boarder or another person living in the house?
No, just the two roommates.
Were the fingerprints of the boarder taken to see if they matched any at the scene?
Yes, they were.
With regard to the knife or gun, was Mr. Alexander's old BMW searched?
No, it was not.
Any other questions from the jury? Follow-up from the state.
Thank you.
Mr. Nermy.
I do have a couple questions. His roommates of Mr. Alexander's, I think you mentioned that the other day. Enrique Cortez, and I'm sorry, could you refresh my memory on the other one? Was it Zach Billings, is that correct?
Yes, Zachary
Okay.
Billings.
And they were both living with Mr. Alexander at the time, right?
Yes.
Okay. And did your investigation reveal whether or not Mr. Billings or Mr. Cortez knew that Jodi Arias was coming for a visit?
They did not know she was coming for a visit.
And based on your investigation, did you obtain any knowledge that either Mr. Cortez or Mr. Billings were warned against this so-called dangerous stalker to call the cops if she showed up?
Objection to the oath.
Overruled.
I had no such information.
No information. Thank you.
Detective, you may step down. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take the evening recess at this time. Please be back in the designated area downstairs, meeting room A, at 10:25 tomorrow morning, and we will start promptly at 10:30. Please remember the admonition. Have a nice evening. You are excused.
Please stand for the jury.
The jury has left the courtroom. Ms. Wilmot, Mr. Nermy, do you have any additional materials for me to review?
I do, Judge. We have two sets of transcripts in the copy center to review. I know earlier the state said they wanted to make a record, so once he's done doing that, we can bring them to the court. I'm assuming the court hasn't read everything else already, so if he wants to make his record, then we will submit those transcripts afterwards.
Did you want to make your record today or tomorrow?
I'd do it right now. I have it right now.
All right.
I can get it done.
All right, let me just get my notes. You may proceed.
With regard to issue of the text messages, and I'm citing the transcript dated June 18th, 2010, before Judge Duncan, and the person that is testifying is Michael Melendez. And he was asked, amongst the items seized was a cell phone pocket PC, right? We've talked about that before. And he answered yes. The question was, okay, so you know to which item I'm referring to? And he answered, is that Mr. Alexander's phone? The answer was yes, and then he said yes. Question was, okay, you looked at that phone, you powered it on, correct? He answered yes. And did you or did you not find text messages on there? His answer, I did. Question, okay, you did, and the answer yes. Question, did you read those messages, the content, the verbiage? His answer was yes. Okay, and what do you recall of that, was the question. His answer, I don't have any recollection specifically. I know I did note some of them in my report. The answer, okay, were you able to download those messages from the cell phone pocket PC? He answered, I was not. He was asked, describe for us why you weren't able to do that. He said, at the time, I did not have any software that would give me the capability of doing that. And then he talks about it in other portions of this particular transcript, but it does indicate that this issue involving the text messages has already been discussed, and that Detective Melendez has already indicated that he was unable to download the text messages from Mr. Alexander's telephone because the technology or the software wasn't available. That's what he testified to. In the argument that was presented to you previously, after the person from Verizon testified, he and the person from Verizon, Jodi Citizen, indicated that they didn't keep these text messages other than 2 or 3 days. And defense counsel sort of saddled on that and said, well, see, they were there and the state just wouldn't turn them over to us. I would like to mark this as an exhibit, and I'll have you read it. There's other references to this. It also talks about the email messages and what happened. And I ask that you consider that with regard to the present motion involving the text messages. And I do have other issues. But...
All right. That document will be marked as an exhibit and admitted for purposes of the court ruling on the motion for mistrial.
It may be duplicitous, we're certainly not objecting to that. We do have the other testimony of Arias as well, and that's what we'll be furnishing to the court later. I can't recall the dates, the specific dates, but there were other hearings, and we'll be providing those transcripts to the court.
All right. Do you want further argument on this issue, this request for mistrial?
Judge, the only thing I would make note of as it relates to this in terms of misconduct, the prosecutor, when I raised this issue, went forward and said, oh, you know, I think that all Hispanic names must sound alike, implying I'm racist, that I'm being insincere about my efforts, or that I'm not very smart. Yeah, I think that's demonstrative of the idea that the emperor has no clothes here, Judge. There is contradictory testimony he's elicited. I'll let the transcripts speak for themselves. But I point those things out because that's an additional instances of misconduct that's inappropriate on the part of this prosecution and should not be tolerated by this court. And that's all I have to say on that. I do have one more record to make, and then we will be done.
Mr. Martinez?
Yesterday, defense counsel requested that an item that had been in the possession and available for the last, since approximately July of 2008, and available for inspection, be turned over to them. And this is the first request that was ever made. It involved Mesa Police Departmental item number 4022827, which is a camera. Ostensibly, it belonged to the defendant. It was seized from one of the homes that was searched up in Margarita, California. I had that marked as exhibit number 364. The request was made before lunch. The item was brought over during the lunch hour. I had it marked as exhibit number 364, and it was released to the defendant yesterday after their request. The other issue involves, there was a witness by the name of Gus Searcy that was just noticed. I think it was noticed either Monday or Tuesday, maybe Wednesday of this week. I know it's this week. I'm not asking for preclusion, but I'm asking for consideration. And that consideration is that he be made available in Phoenix for my interview during this hiatus that we will be taking. So I ask that he be ordered during the next week to be made available so that I can interview him.
Mr. Nurmi, do you wish to be heard on either of these matters?
Yes, the recitation of the facts regarding the camera, just for the record, is accurate. My expert picked it up from your clerk yesterday, I believe it was. As it relates to Mr. Searcy, for the reasons we've stated in ex parte, we believe that that would not be appropriate at this time.
The court will take the state's request to interview Mr. Searcy under advisement and will rule in the future on that request. Mr. Nurmi.
The only other issue I have is that yesterday we were given the understanding that the state would be calling Lisa Andrews. She was known as Andrews at the time. My understanding now is that her last name is Diodone. The information we have on her, at least in terms of her telephone number, is probably at least a year, if not more so old. So we were asking that the state provide us with that contact information and that any subpoena issued to her remain in effect.
Mr. Martinez?
She called me during the break, and I spoke to her. I will call her, and if she wants me to facilitate this contact, I will. If she wants to speak with the defense attorney directly, that's fine with me. I will take care of it today. I'll call her as soon as this is done. I don't know if the question was being asked, but just so that there is no question about it later, because memories fade, including mine. The reason I did not call her involves this issue of the stalking. I know that defense counsel spoke about stalking in opening statement. And I also know that Mimi Hall, or Marie Hall, spoke about it, saying that when she came to the door, she was speaking with her mother because she was afraid of a stalker. We never made any, or we never indicated that the stalker was the defendant. That information came from defense counsel in opening statement. Ms. Diodoni would have testified, and I'm concerned that, should there be a conviction, I'm not saying there's going to be, that an issue like that is so inflammatory that some court may say something to the effect that, well, the jury could have possibly considered this improper evidence of stalking in their decision and may have been inflamed under 401, 402, and 403. I know that the defendant has not moved in limine to do this, but this is more of a self-governing move on my part. What Ms. Diodoni would have testified and what she told me about was that she spent, it was December of 2007, that she spent some time with Mr. Alexander at her house. It was raining, and that when they were inside the house, there was a knock at the door, and they went outside to look, and this was during the time when the defendant was living in town. She went outside, and Mr. Alexander's tires were slashed. He then got them replaced the next day. He came back the next day, and then again somebody came to the door. His tires were again slashed, and at some other point, maybe the next day, her tires were slashed. The tires on her car were slashed. She, when they were inside after finding that her tires had been slashed, she was concerned that her safety was at risk, and she asked Mr. Alexander to spend the night with her. She would have testified that they did not have any sexual contact that night. But he did stay the night. The next day, and she remembers the date as December 8th of 2007, she received a letter from supposedly the stalker, but it came from a John Doe accusing her of a number of religiously based sins, such as you're an unworthy whore, things like that. And so my view is that if I introduce that type of evidence, or if somehow that finds itself into the record, there is a strong potential, in my view, that somebody who may review these proceedings would find that the conviction may have been tainted under 401, 402, and 403. So that's the reason why I chose not to call her. I just don't want to run that risk.
Right.
Your Honor, I believe the state's so-called concern is ultimately disingenuous, because a review of the evidence will show, first of all, I don't need the advice from him. And there is exculpatory evidence. We've also, that Ms. Andrews, or Diodoni, has to offer. She was dating Mr. Alexander at the same time that he was sleeping with my client. The other issue is that there has been evidence of her as a quote-unquote stalker that the state has elicited. So I believe it's disingenuous. I believe I'm within my, he's basically trying to imply that there'll be an IAC claim somewhere down the road. Let the chips fall where they may, but strategically, we believe the position is that calling her as a witness is appropriate, and we intend to do so. So I don't know if he's asking for preclusion or what exactly the state's motion is, but we fully intend to do it and request the information.
I'm not asking for any relief, I'm just sort of indicating for the record why I'm not sure it's a good idea that she be called. All he needs to do is to give me a date and time, and I will inform her of the date and time that she needs to be here. I know that that may not be something that he can do right now, but I will call her, I will speak to her today, and I will indicate to her that she is still under the admonition and that she is not to watch anything, not to do anything with regard to, or speak to anybody with regard to this case, and that she is going to be asked to come down and testify. I will say that she has been reluctant about testifying, and that's the reason why I indicated that I would act as an intermediary. If they don't want me to do that, I'm fine, but I will make a call to let her know that she probably will be contacted in the future, but if they want me to do it, I'll do it.
She is under subpoena.
She is under subpoena.
All right, then I will order that the subpoena remain in effect. All right,
Her contact information be provided to us?
Sure.
yes, and he will do that today.
I will do that. I will give her address. I'll call her today.
All right. Anything else for the record today?
No.
Address and phone number on this deed on it. That's our request.
All right. So ordered.
And will the court be, once we come up with the transcripts, will the court still be unlocked, or would you like us to take them to, up to chambers?
You can bring them here and she'll bring them up to me.
Fair enough. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. We're adjourned.